The Death Castle, H. Holmes and the Horror Hotel. In 1893, while millions of visitors arrived in Chicago for the World's Fair, one man was quietly building what would become known as America's first horror hotel. Herman Webster Mudgett, who called himself Dr. H. Holmes, created a 3-story labyrinthine structure filled with gas chambers, trapdoors, crematory ovens, and torture rooms. During the fair months, dozens of young women seeking employment and adventure simply vanished. This is the real story of America's first documented serial killer and his death castle that terrorized Chicago. Herman Webster Mudgett arrived in Chicago in 1886, a charming young man with medical training and grand ambitions. He quickly reinvented himself as Dr. H. Holmes, establishing a pharmacy in the bustling Englewood neighborhood. Holmes possessed an unusual combination of intelligence, charisma, and complete lack of conscience that made him both successful and deadly. The young doctor quickly gained the trust of his community. He was handsome, well-spoken, and appeared genuinely caring toward his customers. Women found him irresistible, and men respected his apparent business acumen. But behind his charming facade, Holmes was already planning something unprecedented in American criminal history. In 1888, Holmes purchased an empty lot across from his pharmacy and announced plans to build a hotel. What he actually constructed would become known as the Murder Castle, a building designed specifically for killing. Holmes hired different construction crews for each floor, firing them before they could understand the building's true purpose. Workers who asked too many questions about the strange architectural plans often disappeared entirely. The 3-story structure defied logic and building codes. Corridors led to brick walls, doors opened to empty shafts, and staircases descended into darkness. The second floor contained over 60 rooms, many without windows, and some accessible only through trapdoors. Gas pipes ran to several rooms, allowing Holmes to asphyxiate victims at will. Soundproof chambers muffled screams, while chutes led directly to the basement crematory. Holmes equipped his castle with a fully functional laboratory in the basement, complete with surgical tables, acid vats, and a furnace large enough to incinerate human bodies. He also installed lime pits for dissolving flesh and a medieval-style rack for torture. The building was literally a machine designed for murder. What do you think about this methodical approach to mass murder? Can you imagine the planning required to construct such an elaborate killing facility? When the World's Columbian Exposition opened in Chicago in 1893, Holmes saw his greatest opportunity. The fair attracted over 27 million visitors, many of them young women seeking work in the booming city. Holmes advertised his building as a hotel and his pharmacy as an employment agency for fair workers. His victims followed a tragic pattern. Holmes would charm young women with promises of employment, romance, or both. He particularly targeted those who had traveled to Chicago alone, without family connections to notice their disappearance. Once under his influence, victims would move into his hotel, often signing over their life savings and possessions. The killing methods varied according to Holmes's mood and curiosity. Some victims were locked in soundproof rooms and slowly asphyxiated with gas. Others were trapped in rooms that gradually filled with water. The most unfortunate were taken to his basement laboratory for medical experiments while still alive. Holmes showed remarkable cunning in disposing of evidence. Bodies were stripped of flesh using acid, skeletons were sold to medical schools, and remaining traces were incinerated. He kept detailed records of his victims' assets, systematically stealing their identities and money. To the outside world, these women had simply moved on or returned home. Thank you for staying with us through this disturbing content. The most shocking revelations are still to come. Holmes's downfall began not with murder, but with insurance fraud. In 1894, he attempted an elaborate scheme involving the fake death of his associate Benjamin Pittezel. When the plan unraveled, investigators began examining Holmes's other activities. What they discovered defied belief. Police entered the Murder Castle in July 1895, expecting to find evidence of fraud. Instead, they uncovered America's first documented serial killing facility. The basement revealed human bones, blood-stained clothing, and surgical instruments. Investigators found evidence of at least 9 murders, though Holmes later confessed to 27. The building's architecture told its own horror story. Every room seemed designed for a specific murderous purpose. Gas pipes, hidden chambers, and body disposal systems revealed the methodical nature of Holmes's crimes. The discovery shocked a nation that had never encountered anything like systematic mass murder. Holmes was arrested and charged with multiple murders. During his trial, he alternately confessed to crimes and proclaimed his innocence, changing his story repeatedly. He claimed some victims were still alive, while providing detailed descriptions of others' deaths. His behavior suggested either insanity or calculated manipulation. The trial became a media sensation, with newspapers competing to publish the most sensational details. Holmes seemed to enjoy the attention, giving interviews and writing his own accounts of the crimes. He showed no remorse for his victims, treating their deaths as business transactions. On May 7, 1896, H. Holmes was executed by hanging in Philadelphia. Even in death, he remained mysterious, claiming that Satan had taken possession of his body and that his face was transforming into that of the devil. Following Holmes's execution, the murder castle continued to haunt Chicago. The building changed hands several times, but no business could succeed there. In 1895, a mysterious fire destroyed much of the structure's upper floors. Many believe the fire was deliberately set to erase the building's horrific memories. The basement, where most horrors occurred, remained largely intact until the building's complete demolition in 1938. Even today, visitors to the site report feelings of unease and unexplained phenomena. The case established many procedures still used in serial killer investigations. Holmes's legacy extends beyond his crimes. His methodical approach, use of charm to attract victims, and systematic disposal of evidence became the template for understanding serial killers. Modern criminal profilers study his case to understand how intelligence and charisma can mask complete lack of empathy. What do you think of this case that introduced America to the concept of the serial killer? Can you imagine how Holmes managed to construct and operate his murder facility in plain sight? Leave your opinion in the comments. If you were impressed by this real story, subscribe to the channel for more cases that shock the world. Don't miss our next video about another terrifying mystery from American history.